The situation unfolding across the league over the past 72 hours has created a ripple effect that's reaching every contending team's front office, including right here in Allen Park. And what I'm about to reveal involves a veteran quarterback whose name carries massive recognition, a complicated contract situation, and a potential opportunity that Brad Holmes and the Lions brass are undoubtedly monitoring as we sprint toward the trade deadline. Welcome to Lions News Fan Report, your ultimate source for breaking news, exclusive insider analysis, and all the latest updates on our Detroit Lions. I've been tracking developments that connect directly to our quarterback depth chart, our Super Bowl aspiration, and the kind of strategic insurance policies that championship teams secure before it's too late. This involves one of the most decorated quarterbacks of the past decade, a franchise in complete disarray, and a decision that could impact our playoff run in ways most fans haven't even considered yet. Let me establish the context of where we stand right now as a franchise, because understanding our current position is absolutely critical for evaluating what moves make sense as we approach the November 4th trade deadline. The Detroit Lions are legitimate Super Bowl contenders this season, sitting atop the NFC North with one of the most explosive offenses in the entire league and a defense that's creating havoc week after week. Jared Goff is playing at an MVP level. Our offensive line is dominating in both the run and pass game, and the weapons we have at skill positions make us a nightmare matchup for any defense in the NFL. However, championship teams don't just rely on their starters performing at peak levels for 17 games plus playoffs. They build depth, they create contingency plans, and they make sure that if disaster strikes in the form of an injury to a critical position, they have quality options ready to step in without the entire season derailing. This is especially true at the quarterback position, where one injury can transform a Super Bowl favorite into a team watching the playoffs from home. We've seen it happen countless times throughout NFL history, and the Lions front office is acutely aware of this reality. Our current backup situation behind Goff features Hendon Hooker, a young quarterback with intriguing potential but limited NFL experience, and Nate Sudfeld, a veteran journeyman who provides stability but hasn't proven he can win games at the NFL level if thrust into extended action. If something were to happen to Goff during a critical stretch of the season or in the playoffs, we'd be asking a lot from either of those players to maintain our championship-level performance. That's not a criticism of Hooker or Sudfeld. It's simply the reality of where they are in their respective careers. This brings us to the trade deadline and the fascinating landscape of veteran quarterbacks who might become available over these next 10 days. The market is always complicated at this position because teams are understandably reluctant to trade signal callers who could potentially be needed. But there are situations around the league where franchises in rebuilding mode or complete dysfunction might be willing to move veterans for draft compensation or salary relief. The Lions, as a team with legitimate championship aspirations, should absolutely be exploring every possible avenue to upgrade our depth at the most important position on the field. Now, there's a specific situation developing with a team that's in absolute chaos, a franchise that's struggling mightily and might be open to moving pieces before the deadline to accumulate assets for the future. This team has a veteran quarterback on their roster who once upon a time was considered one of the elite players at the position, a Super Bowl champion with a Hall of Fame resume who's now in the twilight of his career. His current situation is complicated by reduced performance, questions about his remaining mobility, and a contract structure that makes him easier to move than most players at his position. According to league insiders and analysts who've been tracking the trade deadline landscape, this quarterback has been identified as one of the top 25 trade candidates available before November 4th. The buzz around his availability is real, though the market for his services is admittedly limited given where he is in his career and the scarcity of teams looking for starting quarterback help at this exact moment. However, for a team like the Lions that's looking for veteran insurance rather than a starter, the calculus changes completely, and suddenly a player like this becomes infinitely more interesting. The player I'm referring to is Russell Wilson, currently with the New York Giants, and the potential fit with the Detroit Lions as a backup quarterback is something that deserves serious analysis. Now, before Lions fans start panicking or getting too excited, let me be crystal clear about what we are discussing here. This isn't about replacing Jared Goff or making any kind of change to our starting lineup. This is purely about whether acquiring a veteran like Wilson as insurance makes sense from a championship preparation standpoint, and whether the cost of acquisition would be worth the potential benefit if we ever needed to use him. Let me break down exactly who. Russell Wilson is at this stage of his career and what he could realistically provide to a team. Wilson is a 9-time Pro Bowler, a Super Bowl champion from his time with the Seattle Seahawks, and a quarterback who for over a decade was considered one of the most dynamic and dangerous players at the position. His ability to extend plays with his legs, make throws from impossible angles, and lead fourth-quarter comebacks made him a nightmare for opposing defenses and a beloved figure in Seattle. However, the Russell Wilson of 2025 is not the Russell Wilson of his prime years. His time with the Denver Broncos was largely disappointing, featuring inconsistent play and questions about whether his style of quarterback play could translate as his mobility declined. His current stint with the Giants has been even more challenging, with the team struggling badly and Wilson's individual performance raising serious concerns about whether his days as a productive NFL starter are over. The tape from this season tells a sobering story. In 3 starts with the Giants, Wilson has completed just 59.1% of his passes, with a quarterback rating of 34.7, which ranks among the worst in the league for any quarterback with multiple starts. His reduced mobility, which was always a critical component of his game, has limited his ability to create outside of structure and extend plays when the pocket breaks down. He can still throw with pace and touch at the third level of the field, meaning he can still make deep throws when given time and a clean pocket. But the dynamic playmaking ability that defined his career is largely gone. From a contract standpoint, Wilson is actually quite attractive for a potential acquiring team. He has a trade-friendly base salary of just $2 million, which means any team taking him on wouldn't be absorbing a massive cap hit. The compensation required to acquire him would not be steep given his current performance level and age, likely involving a late-round draft pick or even a conditional selection based on playing time. For a team like the Lions that's looking purely for veteran depth rather than a starter, those numbers make the conversation at least worth having. The buzz around Wilson's availability suggests that the Giants could slide Jameis Winston into the number 2 quarterback spot if they aggressively pursue a trade. New York is clearly in evaluation mode, trying to figure out their long-term direction at the position, and moving Wilson would give them additional flexibility while allowing them to see what they have in younger options. The predicted chance of Wilson actually getting traded is estimated at just 10%, which tells you that while it's possible, most around the league view it as unlikely given the limited market for his service. The team fits that have been identified include the Las Vegas Raiders and New Orleans Saints, both franchises dealing with quarterback instability and potential interest in veteran options. However, I'd argue that the Detroit Lions represent an even more logical destination if we're purely talking about Wilson as a backup. We have a stable starting situation with Goff, a championship-caliber roster that could immediately compete for a title, and a coaching staff that could potentially maximize whatever Wilson has left by putting him in specific situations that play to his remaining strengths. Now, let me be direct about my perspective on whether the Lions should actually pursue this. I'm skeptical that it makes sense for several reasons. First, Wilson's performance this season suggests he's declined to the point where even as a backup, you'd have serious concerns about whether he could maintain our offensive efficiency if called upon. Second, we're investing significant resources in developing Hendon Hooker, and eating into his reps or developmental opportunities for a declining veteran doesn't align with our long-term planning. Third, the Lions have built a culture and chemistry that's been crucial to our success, and introducing a personality and presence like Wilson's at this stage could potentially disrupt that dynamic. However, I also understand the counter-argument. If the cost is truly minimal, maybe a 7th-round pick or even less, and Wilson is willing to embrace a pure backup role without any drama or distraction, then having a Super Bowl winning quarterback as your insurance policy isn't the worst idea in the world. If Goff went down for 2 or 3 games during a critical stretch, would you rather have Wilson or Hendon Hooker trying to keep the ship steady? That's a legitimate question that reasonable people can disagree on. The broader point here is that championship teams explore every option, evaluate every possibility, and make calculated decisions about how to build the deepest and most complete roster possible. Whether or not Russell Wilson specifically makes sense for the Lions, the exercise of evaluating veteran quarterback depth before the trade deadline is exactly what Brad Holmes and his staff should be doing. We're in a championship window right now, and we owe it to this roster, this coaching staff, and this fan base to leave no stone unturned in our pursuit of a Super Bowl. What I want to hear from every member of the Pride is your take on this situation. Would you want the Lions to pursue Russell Wilson as a backup quarterback if the price was minimal? Do you trust Hendon Hooker to step in and win games if Goff got injured? Should we be looking at other veteran quarterback options before the deadline? How important is quarterback depth compared to other positions we might want to address? Drop all your thoughts and analysis in the comments below, because I want to hear from this incredible fan base about how we should approach these final days before the trade deadline. If you haven't subscribed to Lions News Fan Report yet, you absolutely need to hit that subscribe button right now. This is where you get the breaking news first, the insider analysis you won't find anywhere else, and the kind of comprehensive coverage that keeps you ahead of every development with your Detroit Lions. Smash that like button if you found this analysis valuable. Turn on those notifications so you never miss an update. And share this video with every Lions fan you know. We're in the middle of something truly special this season, and I want you here for every moment as we chase our first Super Bowl championship. I'll see you in the next video with more exclusive updates and insider information. 1. Pride.